This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with section 19.83 and 19.84 Wisconsin state statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all committee members present. At this time, we'll be moving to item number 3. Please be advised that information and comment will be received from the public. It is the policy of this municipality that public input be limited to a 3-minute period per person, with time extension granted at the discretion of the chairperson. Be advised that there may be limited discussion of the information received, but no action will be taken under public comments. I have 3 items that I received via email, and I would like to read those first, please. The first item is from Sue Schlichter, N113W16241, Sullivan Circle, Apartment 205, Germantown. After hearing what happened and the huge expense that it cost Menominee Falls and Waukesha when they switched to county, we should be looking further into the actual expense for this to happen. It sounds like it would be more beneficial for dispatch to stay in Germantown. You are still going to have clerical and someone at the front window. That was it for the first one. And the second one is, we would like to know why certain people try to push this dispatch issue without going to the proper committee first. Was this a closed-door meeting for certain people? This looks like the community of Big Bend, Wisconsin, when they had their board meeting, stated they were dismantling the police department. Only 1 or maybe 2 people knew of it. Yes, this was the local news. Why was nothing in our local Germantown newspaper about it? Only what Police Chief Snow put out there, nothing from the village. A lot of questions yet that need to be answered to the Public Safety Committee and the residents of the village. Yes, we understand the referendum was not binding to have the sales tax revenue returned to us, but $521,449.98 is a lot of money. The citizens voted to have the sales tax revenue be given back to the communities. This won't happen because the county will not give a check for it. Just do a shared service instead. Where does it state that this is what the citizens want with the shared services? Did you as a village board reach out to the citizens on this issue? They told you this is what they really want. No one reach out to do to shared service. Please don't say no. Plus the new employees the county wants and needs to hire. Please read the article in the Washington County Daily News from September 29th, 2023. You are just shifting the cost from Germantown to the county. What will they next? Let's do everything through the county because we will save you money. Prove it first, then we will think about it. How did the village get in this pickle of no money? Overspending on the TIFs and whatever else. How does $300,000 in savings add up to hiring 4 new police officers when it said it would cost $120,000 for each employee to be hired? Yes, we would get another $150,000 from the county too. Still doesn't add up. Maybe this is a new math that we don't know about. Also, it was explained to us that we need the 4 new hires due to the recent car break-ins and home invasions. Yes, that is true, but this has been going on for a long time. It is just getting worse to the world that we live in. As long as we have been listening to different meetings, the police and fire departments have been asking for more employees. So don't say it is because of the recent crime that it is going on. Crime has been increasing over the years by a lot. You forgot to mention all the retirements in the department. How will this help hiring 12 new employees for the fire department? I didn't hear anything on this. What will happen to the village dispatchers? offer a job with the county. It was said 7 positions would be open at the county at our meeting on September 26, 2023. But in the Daily News dated Friday, September 29th, 2023, the county executive Josh Schulman states only 3 positions help cover the Hartford area. Was it right? Also, we need to hire 4 new employees for the police department work. Where is this money coming from? Also, explain we need the 4 police officers due to break-ins and home invasions. We were explained no difference in response time, but does the county dispatchers know the Germantown area versus our dispatchers? With all the modern technologies, it doesn't always work the way it. This is only good if it working properly. It is good to have people who know the area when they get a call in. A trustee did ask the fire chief how he felt about this. Did anyone ask a trustee did ask the police chief how he felt about this. Did anyone ask the fire chief? We didn't hear anything. Most important, did anyone ask the residents of Germantown how they feel about this? Don't think so. In listening to the Germantown dispatcher speaking at the meeting, we felt like this is the best fit for Germantown, not the county. You need to listen to the employees that do the job, not how we can save this amount of money. The real question is, are we really saving money by doing this, or is this another government force issue again? Sounds a lot like it is. How long have all of the dispatchers been employed by the Village of Germantown? Thank you for your service, but we have to let you go. This is very wrong of the village to do this. Having no one at the police station on third shifts and weekends is so wrong. What happens if you need help at that time? No one is here at the station. If this person or persons is from out of town or whatever, it always said you need help, go to the nearest police station. Remember, way before cell phone, this has been taught to everyone. We would like to see the dispatch stay here in the village at least for 1 more year or so until all the issues are working out with Washington County. Right now, when looking at the list of communities they dispatch for, they are all the smaller communities. We say wait and see how Hartford goes. Can you really compare Mequon to Germantown? It's not the same county. What is West Bend doing? Staying as it is? Yes, we have not heard a word about them moving their dispatch yet. We didn't like to hear it. How we will be pushed into doing this because the government will be cutting off the communities with aid for the new 911 equipment in the future. Once again, government is telling us what we have to do, not asking us if we would like to do this. Hey, how about a survey? The village loves to do surveys all the time. Ask the citizens how they really feel about this in a mailing, not on the computer either. Please think long and hard on this issue because once it leaves, it is gone for good. No getting back down the road. Also, remember that most of us will not be around if you move the dispatch. Also, just leave the tornado system in the budget. We don't walk around with our phones glued to our hands 24/7 like most people do. What about the children and elder citizens in the park or on their bikes or wherever else? Do you believe every single person in the village walks around with a cell phone in their hands? We might be wrong, but rather be safe with tornado warning than not. Besides, what would $9,000 do for the village? It would be a pinch of nothing toward a public safety employee. The Schneiders, W157, W9924 Bayberry Circle, Germantown, Wisconsin. And lastly, dear Public Safety Committee, thank you in advance for taking a deep dive into the safety personnel budgets and their full funding. The previous discussions here have been valuable background for a thorough vetting of a sustainable plan for the 2024 budget. Further work is needed. The current budget proposal is much too fast, like ripping a Band-Aid off your entire body all at once. Rather, a more measured approach over time appears to be more rational. Since we have heard that even if the funds were in place for full staffing, we would be unable to have full active duty immediately, it makes sense to build full employment over 2 to 3 years. The world is becoming less safe. That includes Germantown, as hard as that is to think of. Historical data shows more personnel are needed and long overdue. Regarding the dispatch going to the county, it is unacceptable to have an empty police department building for 365 night shifts in a year. The very purpose of having police is for emergency response, which does not limit itself to the morning or afternoons. The stated $300,000 in savings turns out to only be $100,000 or so when you factor back in the admin time still needed and currently being handled by dispatch. A sit-down discussion with the people that are affected by these decisions is in order. Let our police be in the conversation about their future and how best to be an important part of our community. So far, it looks like an administration only concerned about saving money for possibly unwanted development projects. How do we know if a property purchased by the village is a good use of our money and or additional debt when things are done in closed session without the promised neighborhood meetings? The primary responsibility of providing basic services for taxpayers, businesses, and residents is public safety. The ARPA dollars could easily go to squad cars and ambulance costs and are an appropriate expenditure. Revamping the current building or a new police station should be off the table for a few years. We don't need it, can work with what there is, and already have doubled our debt service with the DPW project. In fact, it makes sense in 2 to 3 years to see how personnel buildup goes, dispatch evolution or not, recessions, tax revenue available, paying down debt, closing TIDs to release dollars to the general fund, etc. In other words, making a plan for the new Germantown police and fire should look. This logic applies to the rec and library also. But second, secret development is way at the bottom, perhaps even off the page. Thank you for reading my comments and considering these ideas. Melanie Smythe, N140W19738 Cedar Lane. Thank you. I try to read comments word for word. Are there any other public comments for tonight's meeting? Please. Come forward, state your name and address. There you go. You're
My name is Chrissy Paulus. I'm a West Bend resident employee of the Germantown Police Department. Dispatch. Good evening. Like I said, my name is Chrissy Paulus. I'm a third shift dispatcher that has served the village of Germantown for over 13 years. During my career, I've gathered many stories, but tonight I'd like to share one with you that may give you some insight as to why our physical presence at the Germantown Police Department is so vital to our community. A few years ago, around 2 a.m., a frantic female subject burst into the lobby where she found me. She described a sustained domestic violence incident in which her husband battered and threatened to take her life. During the altercation, she remained strong, and when she found an opportunity to do so, she ran. She ran directly to the Germantown Police Department. She told me that she knew he would pursue her and that she feared he would figure out exactly where she had gone because she had no other safe place to go. I secured her in our crisis intervention room, gave her water, comforted her, and most importantly, made her feel safe. In the meantime, an officer was dispatched and headed back to the station from his patrol area to investigate. I'd like you to think about how things could have gone differently had what she found in the lobby of the police department not been me, but a telephone that she picked up to contact another agency in another city on the opposite side of the county who would inform her to sit tight and wait for them to dispatch an officer off the road to come in and secure her. Would she have stayed? Would her husband and attacker have found her? If he had, would she be alive today? Luckily, this situation does not present itself very often, but what is the value associated with the impact made on that one woman's life that one night? I know her name, I know where she lives, I know how many children she has, and I know the trauma she sustained for years following that incident. When I see her now ex-husband's name come up in the current call logs, I remember her and I remember that night. The dispatchers of Germantown do not simply answer phones and dispatch officers. We are the light and the hope during the worst of your nightmares. Everyone has to deal with their own nightmares, but the dispatchers deal with everyone's nightmares. We love what we do, and even more pertinent, we love doing it for the community of Germantown. I wholeheartedly believe that if consolidated dispatch goes through, losing the Germantown Police Department's dispatch center and the physical presence of our dispatchers will be tremendously negatively impact the residents of Germantown. Our officers and our residents need us. Please note that I did not say the officers or the residents, but our. The officers and the people that we serve are a piece of us. Day after day, we bear the responsibility of keeping them safe. It's who we are, not just what we do, and we want to continue to do it for the Germantown Police Department and the village of Germantown. The safety of Germantown depends on our dispatchers, and for this reason, I urge you to vote against consolidation.
Thank you for your service and thank you for your comments this evening. Are there any others that would like to give us their thoughts tonight?
Scott Effley, W159 N10514 Old Farm Road, Germantown. I've been coming to public safety meetings for 2 years and have heard the whole history and the plight of everybody, and I understand what's going on. And as a 30-year resident, I can tell you I've been to the dispatch area late at night. It wasn't for an emergency, thank God. Thank you for helping. But I've been there for questions. I've been there for what's going on. It happens, you know, you say it never happens, it does happen. So, you know, I'm concerned by this, and I gave a handout to the people on the committee that says, there's an article, and I got to get my information apparently from Washington County, you know, up in West Bend, a paper, because I can't get any information here. Not even from the village, and I come to meetings for 2 years, a lot of meetings. So I guess I don't get it, because the information shared is not the complete story, is it? You know, we need to do this. We need to move dispatch, okay? Kind of out of the blue to some people, certainly out of the blue to people in the community. I had no idea we were looking to move dispatch. Now, I know it's been discussed for 10, 12, 15 years, but we never were serious about it, I don't think. It was like, hey, if it would do this or that, we'll take a look at it, we'll study it, we'll do this. And now it appears in a budget where we're just taking it away. And I don't think that was vetted. And I know some people on this committee weren't very happy that it didn't have a full vetting at this committee level. That's where it starts. Then we go to the village board and argue about it, okay? So I don't think we're going to save money. Now, there may be information I don't know that shows how we're going to save money, but I don't see us saving money. We got to hire admin people. We got to train them. We got to replace these people sitting here, okay, that are highly trained, know what they're doing, and help the village. That is not going to come for free, okay? You don't just replace highly trained people out of the blue. Anyone in the private sector knows it costs a lot of money to train these people. So just to have the budget, oh, we saved a few $100,000 here, that's ridiculous, okay? If it has to happen, it has to be vetted and it has to be discussed. And the newspaper article that I gave out to these trustees said, even the county executive, Josh Shulman, has no idea that he can quantify how much money this would save a community. But hey, whatever money that they're going to save, they can use for whatever they want. That doesn't sound like numbers. I'm a numbers guy. There's no empirical data, okay? What is Kewaskum saving by moving dispatch? What did Hartford saving by? Are there any numbers anywhere that says we're going to really save money? There is no discussion of that. It's just like, well, it's in the budget. We have to balance the budget. Sorry, not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments tonight. Would anyone else like to come forth?
Good evening. My name is Eric Hansen. I'm a Hartford resident. I've been an employee with the Village of Germantown for 26 and a half years. So I have the most tenure in the dispatch center. I'm one of the longest serving police department employees and probably one of the longest serving village employees. So I've seen a lot of changes throughout time with this village. One thing I'd like to touch on is I think there's some information out there that you can, by using words differently, you can constructively change the outcome of things. So there's some misconceptions out there about what we do. We do much more than just sit at a desk and answer a phone and dispatch calls. I mean, there's tons of specialty assignments involved in our positions, certifications that take years to achieve. One of the articles that was recently put out in a publication said all cell phone calls are handled by the county. Well, the word handled, that's not true. That's simply not true. They answer the 911 calls and then transfer them to us. One of the concerns I have is there's been a big push. A lot of people have said, well, there's a delay. We're transferring this 911 call to you. That takes seconds. What about the citizens that come into the lobby if this transition takes place? A memo doesn't go out to everyone in the community saying, hey, only come here if you want to pay a fine, only come here for this. People are going to come in and file complaints no matter what. A lot of people like the face-to-face contact that they've had over the years. A lot of people just feel more comfortable talking to someone in person. So now what's going to happen if you do this is they're going to have to talk to clerical staff at the police department who's going to have to try to sort through the issue. Then contact the sheriff's department to generate and dispatch the call to an officer who might be standing right in front of me. Think of how much time that's going to take. And we take a lot of complaints at the counter at the police department. It's going to be an issue. It's a bigger issue than transferring a call down here, which takes seconds. Another thing I'd like to touch on, a lot of us are very dedicated employees. We've been here lately. Public safety was slammed over the past few years. There were protests, one of which actually happened in Germantown here. Then we had COVID, and now public safety is faced with a shortage of employees. Police, fire, EMS, during the COVID times, we were all coming to work. We didn't work from home at all. We were all here. We were all dedicated to the village. We all came in and did our jobs daily. I think there's something to be said for that. We have a wonderful group of dedicated people at our police department. For years, I've seen people come and go. A lot of employees that have stayed with this village for a number of years. One of the things I want to talk about is this issue of calling it consolidation, which it's really not. It's more of a contract with the sheriff's department. When you consider something a consolidated dispatch center, you're talking more of Waukesha County, where it's an individual entity that operates on its own. It's not under the sheriff's control. This would be under the control of the sheriff, from what I'm understanding. So you have to kind of wonder, where does this community fall in line with their priorities if they're in control of the situation rather than having an equal say for each community? There's been articles out there a lot that say Slinger, Jackson, Kewaskum, the county's been through this before, but really to my knowledge, as long as I've been here, they've always dispatched for those communities. And you're talking about communities that are very much smaller and rural compared to this. We border a major metropolitan area and crime spills over. It's not that there's bad people in those communities, but there's a larger population, and larger populations mean more crime. When I started working here, we didn't have the volume of calls that we have now. That circle of crime continues to get bigger and radiate out from the major metropolitan areas.
I have to ask that you start to wrap it up, please.
Okay.
Thank you. I apologize.
No, thank you. So I guess in closing, I'd just like to say, because I worked here so many years, I've been told that the village board, there's been discussions in the past about when we've had staffing issues about closing the lobby at night or shutting the police department down during certain shifts. And we were told that the village board of this village wants to put the citizens first, customer service first, and have accessibility to the public. If that's true, if those are the core values that this village board supports, then you need to keep dispatch here in Germantown. Thank you.
Thank you for your service and also thank you for your thoughts this evening. Is there anybody else that would like to speak tonight, please? Sir, come forward. Well, thank you for coming. Your name and your address, and then please feel free to go ahead.
John Pye, N101 W17618 Misty Morning Way, Germantown. I read in the paper what was going on. I'm concerned if you're going to put, let's say, first responders that I count on, if you want to move the dump site over here or do that, I don't really care. I'm not thrilled with you moving recycling, but hey. But I am concerned that if you say, we'll save $100,000, let's get rid of these people. Well, how much would you say if we get rid of the policeman? Why don't we go to the sheriff and just say, hey, why don't you patrol it? Do we need a fire brigade? Why don't we just hire somebody else to do it? You cannot put at risk the people. And I think if you put it up to the people, you put it to a referendum and say, are you willing to get rid of these people and we'll try this? Oh, by the way, if it doesn't work, you're screwed. You know, I think when you're talking safety, you're talking different. I do a lot with District 4 in Milwaukee. And I will tell you that if you're going to rob somebody, you're not going to rob them in the inner city because they don't have anything. Where are you going to go? Suburbs. And as crime is moving out, it's a fact. I love Sherman Park area. I love the cops down there. But hey, this is reality check. And now when you're taking away the dispatchers that I can't get a hold of, or if I'm not sure, and what the paper said was misleading, all cell phones go through there. Well, that's half truth. I'm tired of half truth. All I would ask you to do before you do this, put it to a vote, put it to a referendum. Ask the people, is it worth? What would it cost us to keep these? $100,000? $200,000? Do you guys know? I'm asking you. How much is it to keep these people here, roughly?
I think the approximate payroll is 600,000.
Okay, 600,000, and if we get rid of them, we get 300,000 in back, or what? In other words, if you go to every voter and say, what's it worth on your tax bill to keep these? I think you would find that the number of houses that are being built, the increase in Germantown, when I first moved in, it was like 8,000 people. We kind of laughed about full-time fire chief. Yeah, well, we don't have that many. Now, we're not that small. That's what I would say. I would ask you to put it, not just to the board, put it to the people and say, what's it worth to you? And then go with what they say. Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughts tonight, sir. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this issue right now? You- Could we take the WebEx one, please? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is JJ Wolf, and I'm a firefighter paramedic for the Germantown Fire Department. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of the Germantown Professional Firefighters, Local 4854. Your Germantown Fire Department members are literally cracking at the foundation. This referendum to add staff will greatly impact the overall mental and physical health of the members of the Germantown Fire Department. With the staffing that we have and the use of MABUS, or the Mutual Aid Box Alarm System, the fire department hasn't visibly failed. It hasn't failed because the men and the women of this department have sacrificed so much and refused to let it fail. This has come with an immense burden to each one of us and our families. Since September 1st of this year, 9 times already, people have been mandated to work on a scheduled day off and had to forego any plans, date nights, family events that they had planned. The amount of hours that we are all putting in is staggering. It's not uncommon to have multiple people working 48 to 72-hour shifts with as little as 12 hours off in between. It's not uncommon to have members work as much as 106 hours in a 5-day period. The workload alone is staggering. The men and women of this department do fire inspections for every commercial and multifamily residence in this village twice a year. We clean our station daily, clean and maintain our equipment daily, perform public education and outreach, and we train for a plethora of job-related duties while on shift. This is all fit in between running calls. Germantown is rapidly growing with commercial and residential properties, along with activities and events drawing visitors. With this rapidly increased workload and call volume, and no additional staff added since 2019, we are on a crash course for failure or worse. Failure in our line of work is not acceptable since the price tag attached oftentimes is a human life. With the addition of more full-time members, the impacts will be felt immediately. This referendum will aid in prevention of further burnout, PTSD, stress, family issues, and relationship or marital stress. This also allows our bodies to rest and recover properly, preventing injury or further injury. The men and women of this department thank you for your support and assistance through this process and allowing us to ask the people we serve for the desperate help that we need through the referendum. The last 2 consulting firms and studies that they completed years ago and years apart showed staffing then should be in the mid to high 20s with an additional station and a recommendation for 2. While this will not fix our immediate wants or get us all the staffing that we desire and desperately need, it does give us a glimmer of hope that we are moving in the right direction. Thank you for your time.
I'd like to thank you for your service and also thank you for your thoughts this evening. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward tonight? There is nobody else on WebEx.
Thank you. My name is Jan Miller, W151N10297, Winsong Circle West. I'm here as a village trustee as well as a resident, and I want to thank police, especially I live in Winsong, and we were part of the area that was ravaged over the Labor Day weekend, and we appreciate all the help that you've given us. The fire department is great, and I understand you're understaffed as well. But I'm here because I appreciate the extra safety, security. Chrissy put it, has a compelling story and actuality of somebody coming into the lobby physically. And we can't lose our dispatchers. We can't be unmanned all night. It's just not, I feel it's not right. And that's on a personal level and for residents as well. And I do hear from residents and they're very concerned about dispatch moving. I'm concerned about it as a village trustee. I haven't seen any hard numbers coming to the village board. And if the county gives us this amount of money, what is the net effect? And that's what I need to see. So what can we do in the meantime? I was on public safety for a couple of years, and I brought forward, could we use the fire protection fund, or could we exclusively use the state legislative monies that came through? It was $498,000 for a couple of police, firefighter, and maybe a vehicle. So I hope that that's part of the discussion in the unfinished business of public safety, whether it's referendum or non-referendum, because we have to vet all of the opportunities and ways to save money. Also, we haven't seen budget numbers that include the dispatch as it is now. So we're looking to get those updated numbers. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
I'd like to thank you for your service and your thoughts also. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward this evening? All right, at this time, we'll move along. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes, please.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second. A motion has been made and seconded. Do we have any discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number 5, please. 5A, monthly police reports.
Thank you. I've attached the August monthly report for your review. Last month, we conducted some extensive training. One of those was the Washington County Multi-Agency Active Attack Training. That is a training that we have done the last several years involving a number of agencies, including fire personnel and sworn personnel on a large simulated exercise. You can imagine if we are faced with an active attack in Germantown, we'd be calling on resources throughout the county. So this training together gives us that opportunity to make sure we're using the same tactics, and it's been very valuable to, excuse me, to us. Our SWAT team did training up in Sparta with the countywide SWAT team. That was about a 4-day training, I believe, that they also do a year. That's about all I had.
Thank you, Chief Snow. Committee, any questions for Chief Snow?
Not at this time.
Seeing that there's no questions, Fire Department monthly report, please.
Fire Department's monthly report is attached. As you can see, calls continue to be up. So far this month, that is August, or excuse me, October, we have had 4 incidences already where we had 3 calls going at one time, if not more, taxing our department and calling on to our neighbors to try and assist us. Besides that, everything else is kind of just normal for the department for this month.
Thank you, Chief. Committee, any questions on the Fire Department monthly report, please?
Not at this time.
Moving on to 5C, please. Overtime reports, Police Department, please.
There's been a lot. We've had a couple injuries, one off duty, one on duty. We don't think that they're going to be a prolonged absence, but it is creating some shortages for us. Other than that, it's been about the same as it's been all year. We still have 1 person on field training, 2 that recently completed field training and qualified for solo patrol. They've been working out outstanding. We're hoping that this last person on field training will be off before the end of the year, and we'll have another candidate graduate in the police academy in the middle of December. We did have a retirement. Lieutenant Dave Huseman retired effective Saturday will be his last day. I believe he can't think of how many years of service he had, but it was a lot. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Chief Snow. Injuries, FMLA injuries, or just a couple of days off?
Hopefully just a couple of days. We'll see.
Thank you. Fire Department overtime report. Oh, sorry, committee. Trustee Baum.
Do we have a report of some kind as to what overtime is being worked and what is generating the overtime? I'm still trying to get my hands around that. Is there any way that we as trustees can be informed? I have this many people working overtime, and this is what has led these people to work overtime. Vacation, injured on duty,
Like a coding, I'm not like a time coding system.
something.
Yeah, we could absolutely do that.
Can we get
I
a
don't-
copy of that? Because that would be helpful to me.
So To present at the public safety meeting, was that what you're looking for?
Sooner the better, because we're not having when's our next meeting and when are we gonna deal with this at the board level? So, yeah, sooner the better so I can understand.
Okay.
Thank you, trustee. Anybody, any other questions, please? Thank you, Chief Snow. Chief Delane, Fire Department overtime report, please.
My overtime will be high as well. We have a couple people on a long-term vacation and one employee on FMLA due to birth of a child. As the union rep talked before, we do have some people on significantly long shifts. In fact, in the firehouse today, I have two people who are on 58-hour shifts, one person on a 48-hour shift, just to try and keep everything full. And the one of them that's on a 58-hour shift will end up having a 110-hour work week.
Committee, any questions for Chief Delane? Trustee Baum.
Same question, Chief Delane. Can you give me some kind of information as to where all this overtime is generated from? Sick leave, vacation time, family medical leave? What is the generating factor?
I think after the meeting here, I can show you our schedule, and that would
Be helpful.
that would help you visualize what's
That would
going on.
Be helpful. Something that I'm trying to get my a grasp on all this. I'm not getting the information.
Sure.
Thank you. Anything else for the fire chief? Item 6A, please. Public safety referendum revisit non-referendum.
Policy updates.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you. Let's go to policy updates. 5D, number E, police policy updates for the month.
None for the police.
5F, fire department updates for policies, please.
None for fire.
Thank you. I'd like to go to item number 6A, public safety referendum revisit, non-referendum financing options and police department, fire department staffing solutions. I believe this was to be Administrator Kreklow. Is he on the line today?
Yes, I am, Trustee Hudson, and I apologize for not being there in person. I was out of the office sick today, but did want to participate online. So my apologies for not being there in person. I did add a memo to the packet and distributed that to the members of the Public Safety Committee that added an additional alternative for adding public safety staff. Before I get into that, just kind of recapping some of the things that we've discussed in the past with the committee. The goal is to get to 4 additional staff in the police department and 12 additional staff in the fire department. We do have a couple of different alternatives that are available to the board to select for going forward with referendums at the next election in April. We have talked about some outside other funding sources that could be utilized. I think the one with the greatest potential is the fire protection fee of $537,000, which could be transferred to the utility bill, freeing up some property tax levy dollars for public safety purposes. The other option that I've identified, working with the police chief, the fire chief, the finance director, going through the 2024 recommended budget, is utilizing some funds that are available to the village board in this year's budget to add 4 additional staff positions in 2024 to the police department. Those would that the cost of those positions could be offset through some additional state transportation aids that we were informed of last week, $118,000 in additional transportation aids that are available. The village board does have some additional room in the tax levy to bring in additional property tax revenue. From what was included in the recommended budget, that would be $151,000. And then just looking at other potential cuts that could be utilized to fund those positions. The budget includes $100,000 in the public works budget for tree planting and maintenance. And I think that could be reduced by $46,000 to balance out the budget. I guess going a little bit further and trying to break the additional staffing into pieces that would be acceptable by the property tax payers. We could also phase in the additional positions that are needed in the fire department. We could reduce the referendum request for the fire department from 12 to 6, which would bring the levy impact from the referendum below $1 million and reduce the impact on the average household. And then with the understanding that we could, using the tax net new construction from the tax increment districts in future years, add approximately one firefighter each year for the next 6 years to get to that number of 12. Obviously, that does create some time lag. It's not as beneficial to the fire department as getting 12 positions up front, but would be a way to spread those costs out over a longer period of time. So I believe that those are the best alternatives that the board has available at this point, and be happy to answer any questions that the committee might have.
So first I'd like to say, thank you for doing this additional digging. I certainly appreciate the efforts, to come up with these ideas. Committee, any, trustee Ryder?
Thank you. Mr. Kretlow, just a couple of comments or questions for you. In reading this over, it's an interesting way to try and grasp the problem here. But I think there's a couple of things that are woven in here. When I listened tonight to the fire department and the number of hours that some of the people are working, if we were to use the plan in number 1 here, it'd be my understanding that there'd be nobody new to the fire department until the year 2025. And I think that's, and I gotta be careful, I'm sitting next to the police chief here, but in number 1, can we somehow maybe split that a little bit so that both police and fire get some relief in the year 2024? I think there's a strong need to help the fire department out equally. The other thing is when you talk about the savings, this would increase on a $300,000 home about $30 a year. Am I gathering that the $300,000 that would be saved by the putting the dispatch up to West Bend to the county, that number is probably included in that?
That's correct. The $300,000 in savings from the dispatch transfer is already included in the recommended budget. So that number helped to meet to balance the budget before we were able to come up with the proposal that I added to the packet tonight. And I also would say that you are correct that I think there is funding available through this component for 4 positions, and what I laid out in the memo that I wrote was adding 4 police officers. that is an option for the village board to add 2 police officers and 2 firefighters. I think the need is very strong in both departments. Both departments have very good arguments for the additional staffing. There has been more additional staffing added over the past few years to the fire department and the transition to part-time to full-time, but definitely both departments have significant needs that need to be met.
So I think that, to totally comment on this proposal, certainly under new business, the dispatch consolidation certainly comes into effect with this as well when you're making this decision. They're both kind of hand in hand. So I'm not saying I'm for or against this or whatever. I think it's a good, a good alternative. And certainly we've been spinning around with this. It doesn't preclude us from doing a referendum, but it brings down the referendum cost from what we originally thought would be, 12 fire and 6 police. So I guess that's my comment at this time.
Thank you, Trustee Nyrider and Administrator Krecklow. Any other questions on this item from the committee, please? Trustee Baum.
I'm still struggling with the validation of the numbers I'm hearing. Chiefs, can you tell me the reality of any of the numbers that have come out of, or Administrator Krecklow, can you tell me the validity of any numbers that have come out of Washington County? $300,000.
So that's new business A?
Trying to figure out the budget. I'm trying to figure out where we're paying for these police officers. So if you don't want me to talk about it here, tell me where I can talk about it. It's public safety referendum, revisit non-referendum financing options. And if we're talking about non-financing referendum options, the numbers of the numbers that go into the dispatch going up to Washington County are part and parcel to us funding the police department, in my mind. Am I incorrect with that?
Please proceed.
Thank you. Can Administrator Krecklow, chiefs, can anybody confirm, validate numbers that have been given us from Washington County on the dispatch? Monies that we are saving. Do we have any real numbers?
Yes, actually, and I see Finance Director raising his hand, and since he's in person, it might be best to have him answer that question.
I will be happy to listen to him. He always has valid numbers.
Good evening. So the numbers are based on a few things. First off, the total amount of salary and benefits for dispatchers for the 2024 budget, if they were fully funded, is $600,000, right? So then what we did is we did a phased approach where we would slowly phase dispatch from the village of Germantown to the county. That total savings is about $300,000 if we were to do it all at once. But since we're doing a phased approach, the real dollars is about $150,000. Where we get the $300,000 from is we save $150,000 in salary and benefits, and the county executive pledged $150,000 to offset that difference. So that's where we get the $300,000. Now, instead of removing all 6 or all 8 positions from dispatch, we saved 4 positions for clerical and admin staff. So that's where you get that $300,000 out of the $600,000.
Can I continue?
Sorry. Yep. Good.
Explain to me, okay, I'm saving $300,000, but then I have to go back and still pay clerical. What am I missing?
So if we were to fully move dispatch from the village of Germantown to the county, we would save $600,000 in salary and benefits.
Okay.
But in the 2024 recommended budget, we're re-adding in half of those positions for clerical and admin staff work, which cost $300,000. So that's where we get that $300,000 savings.
Okay. All right. That clues me in a little bit better there. In looking at the fire department, Chief Delane, help me out with this. When I look at your reports over the past 14 months, I see a high usage during the daytime hours, call it 9 to 5, a drop off, significant drop off between midnight and 6, 7 a.m., and a partial drop off in the evening hours. The problem that I see with staffing is you need, and I've talked to some people, and you need more help during the day. That is a given. That's true.
Correct.
The problem that I see is with the union contract, I cannot hire anybody from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
That is correct. We do not have a 9 to 5 position.
Okay. I can hire people to go inspect properties during 9 to 5. So an inspector can be hired 9 to 5.
Yes, but our inspectors are also firefighters.
Can I hire multiple inspectors instead of just 2? Can I hire 4 between 9 to 5, knowing that they're going to do a predominant amount of firefighting work?
We could.
What's my problem?
The problem comes in as if we actually get a fire at night.
At night?
Sure, because we would drop down to the level that we are at now, and I would not have enough people to go internal due to having to have 2 in and 2 out and having a pump operator operate the trucks.
I learned that the other night, so I'm starting to understand that. You also have what I learned the other week when I went and met with people is that you have certain people that are interested in working nights, paid on premises, paid on call. I don't fully understand that yet, but they are willing to work evenings.
Correct.
And I could hire an evening crew, paid on call, however that works, that could supplement a nighttime fire.
We could hire people or have people who are current employees work a shift in the evening, but we're not allocated for those shifts right now.
Explain why you say we're not allocated. Is it just the dollars and cents that we're talking about, or is there some other reason?
It's dollars and cents for sure. We don't have enough for salaries for those.
Okay, so it's the dollars and cents. Okay.
Correct. And we don't actually have those shifts right now.
Why don't we have those shifts? Tell me about the person I heard about the other day that has a full-time job during the day and wants to help the fire department at night, but isn't getting enough hours at night.
So that would still be like a full-time equivalent position just at night. So if we had one 12-hour shift every night, that would be like a full-time position.
Okay.
Okay. But let's say, but I don't have that position right now.
Right.
So this person that you're talking about is the person who comes in to fill in for somebody else currently.
Right.
Right. There isn't, that position doesn't exist right now.
And could I, in the structure that we have, could I make that position? Forget about dollars and cents right now. I'm looking at, am I allowed to make that position?
Sure.
Okay, so there is a potential of getting people during the daytime that would fulfill most of your needs. And there is the opportunity to get people overnight that would fill another portion of your needs.
Correct.
Okay, I'm trying to find a way to get staffing that covers most of your needs without having to hire 12 people all at once. If I get 4 people during the day, I get your daytime covered. I call them inspectors. I'm allowed to hire inspectors during the day, which covers most of the time, most of the events that we have.
We're actually allowed to hire more than just inspectors during the day.
That's not my
So
understanding.
we have a position that's called, it's a 50-hour flex position.
Yeah.
That is allowable.
And tell me about that position.
It's a full-time firefighter who works during the day.
Okay, I am not aware of that position. So I could hire 2 inspectors and 2 full-time flex guys that work 9 to 5.
You could, yes.
Okay.
That
And-
doesn't really fix weekend problems though either.
I'm trying to work baby steps. I can't. Obviously, if we want to do all 12 people, it's going to referendum and we may or may not get that. What I've been hearing is what's alternative B if alternative A doesn't work. So I am trying to come up with an alternative B, which we have not been able to come up with
Mhm.
all the meetings that I've been at so far. So would 4 full-time people during the day be assistance to you first and foremost?
It would be of great assistance.
Okay. That would be alternative A. If I can go in and get these nighttime people, is there a format to get just nighttime people that would allow for the nighttime fire in the event that it happens?
Yes.
Okay. When I look at your history, I am not seeing significant events overnight. Am I mistaking, or is there not enough history for me to review?
There is quite a bit of history for you to review. But it's hard to quantify what you're actually looking at. So if you look at that scale that shows you that there's hardly any calls at night, like, there was 2 calls at midnight, 4 calls at 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 at 2, 3 at 3. It depends on what those calls are. If one of those calls is a cardiac arrest, that's both ambulances out.
Correct.
If it's a car accident, a major one, or actually not even a major one, even if it's a minor one, that takes the engine and the ambulance, there's nothing left.
For another cardiac.
Anything.
Yeah.
I mean, and it happens. It happened today. As an example, we had a 4-family condominium that had a carbon monoxide leak into it. It took our engine there and our ambulance there. Couldn't find it. We actually had carbon monoxide in the building. It required our crews to force entry into the other units because no one was answering their doors. So in our minds, we don't know if someone has passed in that building because there's carbon monoxide. And while they were in there today doing this, we received a call for a person who fell off a scaffolding onto their head and is unconscious and has a fractured skull.
Yes.
Couldn't take the crews away from there, waited for Richfield.
Right.
For a person who's unresponsive.
Right.
Because of the amount of, this stuff, you can't anticipate when these different things are gonna happen.
No, you cannot. And I have also been informed that at the worst case scenario, you had 35 calls at one time.
That is correct.
We can't anticipate
No,
35
that
calls.
is not something that we can anticipate.
So according to standards in the industry, how many calls should I anticipate? Is there a standard for that? What should I plan for? What should I staff for?
There is not. There is a standard in the industry, and forgive me, I do not have it with me right now. I might be able to look back through my email. It's kind of similar to the police departments where they have a certain number of officers per 1,000 residents.
Okay. If you can just get me that at some point, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah,
I
actually,
don't need it this minute.
Sure.
So I am seeing potential for alternative staffing to bridge a gap between now and tomorrow. We cannot hire, if I told you to hire 12 people today, it would take you how long to actually hire them? Do you feel?
It would be over a year, yes.
Over a year. So I really don't need to fund 12 people today. This year I should fund 6. And in those 6 people, I could get you 4 during the day that will cover majority of the calls. And if I could put 2 on that night shift that would assist in the overnight hours, which are based on historic averages are minimal or less.
The calls for sure are less. However, most of the fires happen at night when people are sleeping and not there to put things out.
Yes. And to fight a fire, you need 5, 6, 7. How many people do I need to fight a fire?
For a working structure fire, the NFPA standard is 2 engines, 2 engine companies, a ladder company, chief officer, and an ambulance.
Which is how many people?
That would be 12, 16, 17 at minimum. And then it depends on how hot it is outside.
So therein lies a significant problem. In the staffing model, we don't even have enough to cover that.
No, and typically when we're looking at the actual structure fire, we try to get as good as we can be to handle our normal routine calls. Obviously, structure fires aren't something that happen in Germantown every day.
Right.
We get 30 a year. A variable. That is when the MABUS thing comes out.
Right.
And that's what we utilize. But when we're at the point where we're having to utilize MABUS for our normal routine calls.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to avoid is the normal calls.
Right.
So the 5 people you have on shift now, as I recall, it's 5 on shift now.
Correct.
You add 2 more people to that, that 7 people would handle more calls than,
Yes, that would be another ambulance.
would we then cover the 4 that we have today of MABUS calls? I think they're MABUS calls. The aid given from Menominee Falls, you said we had 4 of those, received 4 of those. Those 2 more people overnight would help with that, would clear
Absolutely.
that up.
It would absolutely help with it. I'm trying to get back to the report here.
And the other aspect I continually see is our outbound assistance is generally always greater than our inbound assistance.
That's typically correct, yes.
Yeah. So while we focus on how many times we have to call others to help us, we kind of minimize how many times we have to leave and go help others.
That is correct. What this report doesn't show though is how many times we actually cancel
Yes. Yes. Granted,
or can't cancel us going to somebody else.
I've seen that, and in my general review, that was 3rd or 4th on the list of highest number of NFIRS incident types canceled en route.
Mhm.
Was generally 3rd or 4th, 5th.
Right.
So it is a high number of times that we do that. Okay. So what I'm getting at is if we can work through an alternative scenario of staffing in the meantime, if I can get these 4 people during the day, if I can get 2 people during the night, that's half of the 12 that we need. If I can find funding for that, we would potentially help you out greatly.
Absolutely.
Achieving
Absolutely.
your goals.
Absolutely. that would-
Understanding that moving forward, we have still another hurdle to get over. We need the other half at some point.
Correct. And quite frankly, that second part is what scares me. Because we've been on this road for years of, well, we'll try again next year, we'll get you one. We'll try again next year and get you one.
I
And-
understand that. And I also understand development is happening in our town.
Correct,
And
I
it's
do.
development that is going to fund the taxes to pay for this, or it's a referendum to get everybody to pay more taxes.
Correct.
So we got alternatives. With that, I am going to stop my discussion and let other trustees have at their comments.
Thank you, trustee Baum. Trustee Peeper, anything? Trustee Nyrider?
I've made my comments on the handout that we were presented. I think some of that incorporates some of the things that trustee Baum is asking. It's a matter of.
Micah.
Sorry? I said that the memo that was sent out by Administrator Krecklo on October 4th addresses, I think, some of the things that trustee Baum is asking about. It's just a matter of the mix of police and fire, how you want to do that, or how many you want to put on the referendum, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a clear understanding of what Chief Delane needs based on the questions that you asked. That does help. But I think this retooled somewhat could answer a lot of what you are looking at. But then again, as I said, the other thing that mixes in with that, when you're talking the tax increase, at a $300,000 home is, if you've already incorporated the dispatch savings in that as well, which is in there, then if you take that out, it's a totally different equation.
Yep, I understand. Chief Delane, please.
To answer trustee Baum's question, NFPA states it's 1.3 career firefighters per 1,000 population.
We're at 23,000 people. We're doing the math. 29,000 firefighters is not the right number.
We'll be safe though.
That's not the right number either. You did divide it by 0.3. You didn't do 1.3. That's correct. 18. Looking at
18.
18 staff members, which is your current staff plus the 12.
That is,
We're over the 18.
that's not.
Actually, if I can interject with, if it's 1.3 per thousand, we have 22,000 residents. That would be about 28.6 firefighters.
Correct.
I assume that is firefighters on duty, not firefighters employed. Those are two very different numbers.
That is correct, on duty.
28. You're saying you want 28 on a shift?
I'm not saying that's what I want.
But that's what you're.
That's what the recommended is.
That's what the math says. That's what the recommendation is. It's math.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else on this topic, please? Chief Snow. Other way on the microphone, please.
Doing it, man. Dang it. So I did want to just interject with some things that are not going to make me popular. I understand that. But thank you. When we start talking about this proposal here, I'm pointing out that, and I've been pretty clear about my position on having county take over our dispatch. If that happens, if out of necessity that happens, this proposal means that our dispatch goes away. Nobody is impacted even remotely close to the police department if that happens. Not the fire, not the highway. We're going to take the brunt of that. And I said when we were here last time that would necessitate hiring more sworn personnel to do duties that dispatchers do right now. So that, if that happens this way, this impacts us more than anybody else. So the idea of 2 and 2, I don't support, because another fact is, for whatever reason, for public safety, we have not seen the same number of people added. We haven't over the years. And that's a fact. I'm not trying to make anybody angry. I'm just stating that is a fact in this village. 4 officers is what I absolutely need now. I needed it 2 years ago. I'll need it next year. I can justify the use for it and how it allows me to increase my minimum staffing in seconds. Nothing but 4 gets me to that.
If I were to tell you to hire 4 people today, how long is it gonna take you?
Not a year.
Well-
I think 4 people. Well, we have one in the academy that's technically that unfunded position. But we do expect a retirement last year. I do think it would take at least 6 months to hire 4 people.
Wait, I'm trying to comprehend that. So if I tell you to hire 4 people now, I would have 1 every month and a half. I would have 2 in 4 months. I'd have 2 in 6 months. I try and stagger that. I'm trying to understand how much, if there's a stagger capability.
I think that's possible. A lot of it depends on if we can pick up any lateral transfers, what we have to put in the academy. No, we pay their wage as they're going through the academy, but the $6,500 that it costs is not paid by us, it's paid by the state.
So at what point do we actually start paying them when they enter the academy? Is that correct?
They enter the academy at a reduced rate. Right now, I believe that's $23 an hour. As soon as they graduate from the academy, they go up to that first level
And how
patrol
long
officer salary.
is the academy?
The academy is 720 hours, about 4.5 months.
Okay, so we would be paying a reduced wage for 4.5 months before we would have to fully pay their wages, correct?
For anybody in the academy, correct.
And you think it would take about 6 months to start people in the academy, or?
Well, it depends on when we start the hiring process and when we got them hired. The academy is only run, the first one there was one that runs in August, and there's another one that starts in January. And WCTC only runs the 2 academies. So a lot of it is the timing of when you get someone hired.
We can't even start a police officer until January to get into the academy. And then at that point, we would be funding them, minimum or lower wage for 4.5 months. So now we're looking at like May when we would actually need to fund a full paid officer.
Again, assuming that that's a new officer that needed the academy, not a lateral transfer. A lateral transfer could start out at top pay.
And sure. So lateral transfers, what off the top of your head, do you get more people you have to put in the academy or more lateral transfers?
Recently that we put in the academy.
When is the last time we had a lateral transfer?
We just hired one from Milwaukee County.
Okay.
Just recently.
Okay.
So on a new hire, if they have to go through the academy, so they go through the academy and then they are not out on their own for a period of time either, right?
Correct.
So how long on a new hire, non-transfer, how long from the time they start till the time that they are a police officer functioning on par with the veteran officers that we have in our community, please?
Typically 9 to 10 months.
9 to 10 months.
Correct.
So we're kind of looking at
Thank you.
2025 budget.
Well,
Like
but you're-
realistically, because we can't even start anybody in the police department.
No, because if you run the numbers, and somebody tell me if I'm wrong, if they're in the academy, you're paying them at approximately 50% of the wage of an actual officer, is what it looks like to me. $23 an hour is $47,000 a year. So that's about half an officer.
Well, for a full-time officer.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
a full-time officer at top pay, they would start out closer to 66,000. I think it's around
Two-thirds.
$32 an hour.
Realistically, 2024, the budget would be much lower than 2025 when these officers are actually getting paid full wages and are going through the academy. And he said he couldn't even hire them for about 6 months.
So if
So-
they all started in 2024, the wages would be approximately 33% lower. I don't think that you would save anything on the benefits, though. right?
When do
So
benefits start, Chief Snow?
The benefits start immediately.
When they're in the academy?
Correct.
Okay.
So, I mean, it sounds like we'd save 33% of the salary for a period of 4 months. Ballpark, back of the napkin math.
Correct for the duration of the academy.
But that makes our budget numbers a little easier to work with for 2024, and then 2025, we can anticipate that it's going to be fully
As long as they come into the academy.
correct.
If we get lucky and we get a bunch of transfers, then we have a budget shortfall.
Correct.
We have a different number.
Trustee Hudson?
Administrator Krecklow?
Oh, thank you. Just wanted to interject. I think this is a really good discussion. And I think in the memo that I provided, what we laid out was something that did not include a full year funding for four police officers. And actually, one of the positions the police department has indicated they could utilize is a detective. So that is a position that may be hired in a little bit different process. But we tried to accommodate the fact that we would not be paying full salaries for all of these positions for an entire year, while providing some flexibility so that if there was a lateral transfer that was available, someone who could get out on the street right away, that was an option for the police department to hire that individual. And then the final thing that I would mention is, as the board is going through this decision-making process, I would encourage you to look at funding the new positions, whether it's police or fire, at least the levels that we've laid out in this memo, so that we don't leave such a large gap in the 2025 budget. Because the memo funds basically gets us 3/4 of the way for full funding for those four positions. That means we only have a quarter to make up in 2025. If we flip that around and we said, look, we're going to hire a whole bunch of new positions, but we're only going to fund them at 25%, that leaves a very big hole for the 2025 budget. And it's difficult to predict what is going to happen in 2025 and what we might have to do to close that gap in the future.
Thank you, Administrator Krecklow. Anybody, any other discussion on unfinished business? Item A, please. There is no.
Administrator Krecklow,
Trustee Baum.
Administrator Krecklow, can you get a printout for me so I can clearly understand if we hire people today that are entry-level officers, what's the dollar value? When do they move to full-time? There's got to be a number here that I need to fund this dollar amount for 2024 for 4 new officers or 4 full-time officers. Is that something you can print out for me so I understand?
Well,
Could you clarify your ask, please? I don't understand the question.
If I get to the point of saying, let's hire 4 and we end up with 4 new officers, they can't start for how long? We're going to put them into training for so long in the year of 2024. If that is the scenario and I tell them to hire them tomorrow, what's the dollar value I need to budget for that scenario?
So that most expensive scenario
That is the least
Is-
expensive scenario.
is, yes, is one parameter that you want.
Yes.
The other parameter would be,
I get 4 lateral transfers and I can bring them on January 1.
Matthew may have the answer to this question. Matthew,
Matthew is.
most expensive and least expensive, please?
He knows? Wow.
I don't have it immediately. A clarifying question would be, are we talking at the top of the salary range or where in the salary range?
If they go through the academy, it would be at the lower part of the salary
Yep,
range,
that,
correct?
that one I understand. If we had a lateral transfer, is there an area where you'd want to budget in the middle? Would you want to budget at the top?
50th percentile.
Mid-range, yeah, mid-range.
That is something I can provide. I can't provide it tonight, but I can provide it in the next day or two.
You can't provide it tonight, Matthew?
I cannot. My apologies.
Not fulfill our request.
Disappointing, Matthew. Thank you.
One thing, if I could add to Matthew's response, as the committee approaches this, what we typically look at when we're budgeting for new positions is we look at about the average, because there are, what we don't know is where those positions are going to come in. And to add to the complexity, another major part of the cost is, is the person that we hire, are they going to be on a family plan for healthcare? Are they going to be on a single plan? Or, are they potentially someone who gets benefits through their spouse and isn't on a plan at all?
And
Those are things that we really don't know until we go through the hiring process. And as a matter of best practice, we want the police and the fire department to, through the police and fire commission, to hire the best candidates without thinking about those factors. So, my recommendation to the board is that you utilize the averages as Matthew has kind of put them together here, so that when we get to what we're actually doing during the budget year, that we've got numbers that should generally work.
No, certainly, and we can obviously certainly take the percent that we spend on benefits per officer now and apply that to any new officer, and that would be a relatively accurate guide.
Yes. Thank you.
Trustee Baum.
And in that same discussion, Matthew, can I get the scenario that I've laid out for the fire department? What's the dollar value for that? For firefighters during the daytime to overnight.
Yes, that would be a little more complicated just because I don't understand their shifts as well as police, but.
That's why I'm confused as well. So, but those numbers may help me formulate more of a plan. Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. I assume that this will carry over into next month's agenda also. Same item.
Yeah.
Anything else for 6A, please? Excellent. Then I'd like to move on to new business 7, starting with 7A, a discussion about dispatch consolidation, please. Administrator Kreklo, is this you?
I can certainly start the conversation. I know that there are a lot of questions out there, but I'll go through some brief remarks here on what is in the recommended budget and how we got to that point. And I'm going to begin with some background on our dispatch, and I guess I also like to preface that by saying, and I know we have a number of our dispatchers in the audience this evening, and it is something that this is a difficult thing for an administrator to do, as well as it is for a police chief, a fire chief, for trustees. Anytime that we're looking at a change like this that affects the jobs of dedicated public employees, public servants, and especially those who work in the area of public safety. So, I want to first of all just express my appreciation to them, and for what they do and how they do it, and to say that none of what we're talking about and none of this conversation is a reflection at all in the way that they do their jobs and approach their service to the community. For background, Germantown has had a dispatch function, for the history of the police department here, and has conducted that internally. I think it's also important to point out that staffing our dispatch office has been more of a challenge in recent times. I think as there have been a number of retirements in this type of service, as well as really all positions, as we see baby boomers retiring. The committee and the board may recall earlier this year when we did go through some, and I would phrase them, I think we phrased it at the time, emergency salary increases to try to increase pay ranges in order to retain dispatch. At one point, we had only 5 of the dispatch positions filled this year, and we were really, probably one vacancy away from, having to approach the county at that point to at least take over one of the shifts in dispatch, because we just didn't have enough people to do it. And to our staff's credit, our police department's credit, Chief Snow's credit, they've been able to rebuild that staffing levels up. But I think that that's something that is going to continue to be a challenge in the future, as we see, now many of the counties nearby are consolidating dispatch, and they are offering higher wages than what we're able to provide. And I think that, we have very dedicated staff, but it will be difficult to continue to keep all of those positions filled. Another challenge that we face in the community with maintaining dispatch is that the grant dollars that are available for technology upgrades are generally not available to municipalities, but are only available at the county level. So at some point, if we keep our dispatch function, we will need to upgrade to next generation 911. And that was a decision that was made at the state legislative level, that those dollars are not available to, grant dollars are not available to us, and that would have to be done at village expense. So for that reason, there has been, as was mentioned in some of the public comments and in some of the previous discussion by the committee, there have been some conversations, some discussions before this committee, as well as the village board, of potential consolidation of dispatch. And that is something that the county has expressed that they are willing to do, and willing to incentivize for the village of Germantown. So as we were putting together this year's budget, there were meetings with county staff, as well as the fire chief, the police chief, and myself to explore the opportunities for that. And we did include, after those conversations, a phased-in approach for the transition of the dispatch function. The first quarter of 2024 would focus on the implementation of Multi-Juris Pro Phoenix, which is the software that both Washington County Dispatch and Germantown Dispatch use in order to consolidate and standardize the databases. And this is something that, regardless of what decision the village board ends up making on dispatch, is something that would be, I think, beneficial, even if Germantown would keep our own dispatch office, so that in emergency situations, Washington County would be able to fill in. The second phase of the transition would take place during the second quarter, and that would involve the transition of third shift dispatch over to Washington County. And then the final phase would take place during the third quarter, and that would be the transfer of the remainder of the dispatch function. As the finance director mentioned earlier, the total cost of dispatch to the village right now is about $600,000 a year. There are 8 dispatch positions. What the 2024 recommended budget includes is the phased elimination of those 8 positions, and then the creation of 4 administrative assistant positions in order to handle many of the other functions that the dispatchers currently do outside of, in addition to answering phone calls and dispatching squads and fire crews. So there are some service impacts. I think the one that's most notable that that came up in some of the comments is that there would not be staff in the police buildings during third shift. There are some technology approaches that Chief Snow can describe better than I can that other municipalities that have consolidated with Washington County or Ozaukee County or Waukesha County have taken to try to address that. It's not the same as having a person in the building, but there are some other approaches to try to alleviate those functions. And having said that, there certainly are some advantages to having our own dispatch, but in my professional opinion, it certainly is a trend that is not only Germantown is not the only community that's having this conversation right now. As we've discussed earlier, Hartford is transitioning right now. I'm not sure what West Bend is planning to do in the long term. In Ozaukee County, the last community that has their own dispatch function is Cedarburg, and they are transitioning in January of 2024 to Ozaukee County Dispatch. In Waukesha County, there are currently 20 municipalities that utilize the Waukesha County Consolidated Dispatch. So that is an overview of where we are and kind of how we got here. And then I guess for public listening, this is the first of one of many opportunities for public input, as well as for the board to consider the proposal. This is a decision that the board will be making as part of the budget adoption, which is scheduled to take place on November 20th. So there's still another month and a half for consideration and questions and responses to be addressed.
I'd like to thank you for your remarks, Administrator Krecklow. I have some biases, so committee, any questions? Trustee Nyrider.
Administrator Krecklow, the 150,000 that comes from the county, and maybe I didn't hear it or wasn't listening right to it, is that just a one-time, in 2024, we would just get that 150,000, or would that be annually?
That is a one-time payment that the county would provide to support dispatch operations during the transition. The savings on an annualized basis to the village are $300,000 per year, which would be ongoing. There is a state grant that the state set aside $300 million to give to grants to municipalities that consolidate services, not only dispatch, but other services as well. And that would be equal to 10% of the savings to the village over a period of each year for 3 years. But the $150,000 would be from the county would be a one-time payment.
Okay. And the comments and I thank those that are here this evening from the dispatch that you've taken the time to come in here and listen and also make your comments. It's certainly never an easy decision when you're talking about personnel. And has any discussion that has gone on with the county, has there been any, if this was to go through, would they take a look at, and I don't know what the right word is to say, or look at the number of people that we have employed here and possibly be open to, if they need additional people, of first reaching out to Germantown and saying, okay, is anybody here? Would they want to come up to West Bend to the county and work? Has there been any discussions with either Josh or the sheriff or whatever?
I did address that question to the county executive, and he indicated in his response to me that yes, there was definitely interest in as they're trying to fill positions in their dispatch and looking at our dispatchers who may be interested in applying there, and indicated there was also there was openness to discussions on reciprocity for things like the amount of vacation that people were accruing and other types of PTO. So I believe there is a strong interest in the county on taking dispatch staff from our village who might be interested in accepting positions up there.
Okay. And I personally have not made a final decision on this. I know which way I'm kind of leaning with this. But the article that was mentioned before in a letter that was written by or read by Trustee Hudson, it said, regarding the Hartford situation, Josh Shulman was saying that there might be a need to hire 3 positions. Now, that does not take into account the Germantown situation then either. So I'd be curious as to how many that might be. The other thing I guess I have is the $300,000 was when the budget was looked at here, and originally the staff presented that to us. The 300,000 was not from a disappointment in the way the dispatch has worked here, but more from a savings to taxpayers. And, when I heard, I forget who it was earlier that came on and said, that some of they've had 9 situations where people have worked 48 to 72 hours with 12 hours off in between. I don't know if it was Chief Delane that mentioned somebody before that worked 58 hours or whatever it was. That certainly tells us the need, and that's why I say this is interwoven, that tells us the need that we need to hire additional police and fire. But then it also maybe says to us, the only way we're going to be able to do this is to put the dispatch up to West Bend. So it's a tough situation to kind of weigh both of those to see which way you're going to, which way you go. Or, I'd be curious to see is if you put the $300,000 back into the budget, what would that do as far as the rate to taxpayers? And I know that's not a number you maybe can come up with tonight, but I think that would be beneficial. So we could say, okay, here is the difference by doing this. But it also has to incorporate all the other things that we're talking about. If we're talking about hiring police or fire, possibly during 2024, we have to have that all factored in there, and maybe different alternatives. But I would like to see what that would mean. I'd also like to know more about the staffing situations. When we've had shortages, where are we at right now, et cetera. I think that's an important thing to look at because we may be able to staff it now, but as we all know, employment is getting to be more difficult everywhere you go. And you see, I don't have to tell anybody, you see the number of signs up all over that people are looking for employees. The grant that you mentioned that only counties can get, that's the first time I've heard of that. I think that's also very important, that will weigh in the considerations as always. The most difficult thing, and the other thing I guess I'd like to learn more of, and you mentioned this, Administrator Kreklow, is the concern about especially third shift not having anybody here. And, I talked to a municipality today too that has county dispatch. They have no problems with county dispatch. Okay. There were a few flaws at the beginning. They've worked those out. They don't feel it's ever affected the time or the response time or knowing where to go when a call comes in, et cetera. People are used to coming here, and if there are alternatives that we can show them that, I'd be curious to see, at some point in time, if you can maybe relay what some other places are doing to talk about this. That is a valid concern, and certainly the story that I forget that you brought up before certainly isn't the only one. I'm sure there are many, and that's where there's a value there. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about that as well.
Thank you, trustee Nyrider. Trustee Bohm, please.
First off, Administrator Krecklow, and maybe this is a question for Matt, at the committee of the whole meeting, I believe I made a motion to remove this from the budget to go back and put in the budget our current financial situation. Did I not make that motion?
That is my recollection.
Okay, so when you talk about in the current budget, is that prior to that motion, or is it you haven't adjusted the budget based on that motion?
It is prior to that motion, and I guess what I would request of the board is that motions to change the budget be balanced, so that we don't get to the end of the process and have a motion that has one number for expenses and another number for revenues.
To respond to that, I don't know what number I have to pull out until I see the number. So the intent was show me what the budget is with this number put back in, so we understand how much we gotta take back out. So that was.
I'm sorry, and I can answer that question. So the savings from the transfer of dispatches is $300,000, the net savings. If the intent is to increase the property tax levy, the maximum that the board can increase the property tax levy is $151,000. So in essence, it's very similar. The approach that you could take is very similar. What was laid out for the addition of the 4 police positions in the unfinished business item this evening. You could increase the property tax levy by $150,000. You could utilize the transportation aids, and then you would have to make some additional cuts. And again, the tree planting program, I think, is an area you could look.
But if I am understanding all my notes, if I put the dispatchers back in, okay, it's because it's $600,000 for them and $300,000 for, so it increases the budget by $300,000. Okay, I think
That's
got that clear.
that's correct.
Okay. The $300,000 is not going back into the budget. It goes directly to pay for police officers. It's earmarked for police officers. So that, and then if I take the additional $118,000 that we get back from the transportation aid, that is being geared towards police officers. So we have $418,000 going to pay for 4 new police officers. Is that my correct understanding?
Well, in the unfinished business item, and what I laid out in the memo was actually a little over $300,000 for those 4 officers. The $151,000 from additional property tax levy, $118,000 for those transportation aids, and then $46,000 from the tree planting. So
Yeah,
that's
15.
Right. The $300,000 in savings from the transfer of dispatch was built into the recommended budget, which was balanced.
Okay. All right, so that's different than I thought. Okay. As far as the dispatch center, catastrophic situation happens currently when our system goes down, all calls go to county. Is that correct, Chief Snow?
That would be correct, and we just don't have a great system even for that right now.
Okay. If the catastrophic system happens at the county, what happens at the county level?
That's a great question. Ozaki was their backup, but I don't think they are anymore. Anyone here know?
Wow.
Ozaki was, at one point, we were the backup. Then it went to Ozaki.
So there, is there a comment?
I thought in one of the meetings that we had with the two chiefs that the sheriff said that Ozaki County was their backup. I could be mistaken on that.
And Ozaki was originally named the backup, and that could be still be the case.
Or West Bend?
City.
Sheboygan or Milwaukee or
Anywhere.
anywhere.
Good
It's
question.
only a phone call away. Good question. Is that what I heard? Thank you. Is there a potential that why is this dispatch going to one location? Could it be in two locations, and Germantown and Washington County each have a room that mutually shares dispatch? Is that an option?
One more time.
Washington County has a room with 4 people. Germantown has a room with 4 people. It is a joint dispatch center. Is that an option that our people start backing up or supporting this Washington County plan?
I think it is an option, was one of the things that was discussed earlier on, so that you would have a backup to the county. And understanding that we were in the process of planning a new public safety building or police building. Certainly, I think it's an option. Whether it's one they would consider that or that, I don't know.
That was for trustee Pieper. I assume you're still going, trustee Ball.
I'll stop for a moment, because I've been talking a lot. I'll let trustee Pieper talk.
Thank you, trustee Ball. Trustee Pieper, please.
I think this issue is going to need to be put to the residents. It's obvious that this is going to come down to a referendum. If it does come down to a referendum, I would like the wording to be either we move dispatch or we increase your taxes.
So
Thank you, trustee Pieper. Trustee Baum.
is that a second referendum on the ballot? One to raise your taxes to cover police and fire, and one to keep dispatch? 2 referendums on this year's ballot?
I think it could be phrased as either one question or 2. And I'll make a motion.
No action tonight.
There's no action on
No
this?
action on this.
Okay. But that's my suggestion. We're gonna have to leave it up to the taxpayers. It's ultimately their decision, just like it was to send water and sewer to Richfield. We'll try to inform the public as much as possible. I mean, us trustees must do our job and spread the word as much as possible, get everybody out to vote. But ultimately, I think it's gonna be up to them, and I think they're gonna need to decide to move dispatch. And they're gonna need to decide if we increase their taxes.
Thank you. Trustee Baum, anything else?
No, I'm just trying to
Thank you.
understand that there's no action on this tonight.
Trustee Pieper, anything else?
I'm trying to understand how there's no action on this either. It's,
It says action by committee.
Says new business dispatch consolidation.
President Walter, would you be able to, since our village attorney is not here? Can we take action on this? Come to the podium, please, so the public can hear you.
Not going to presume that I am an attorney or here or on TV. But it is for discussion. The point and purpose of bringing it to this committee was so that it would have an open discussion within the Committee of Oversight and continue on through the budget process. It doesn't need a conclusion tonight. It's basically bringing information forward for the residents to hear and comment on, and it can carry on through the process of the budget to come to a conclusion either through the committee of the whole or through a recommendation of this committee, one way or another. But I think tonight is the first meeting that actually presents this information in more of an open format than the committee of the whole does. And I would hope that you'd want to continue to discuss it because it seems to be there's more information and questions that still need to come forward, and some of that information would be required.
Somebody online?
Thank
Oh.
you. I,
Coming from me. So I'm looking at the agenda and the details show the item category that they selected was presentation for this item.
okay,
So
I'm good.
action could be
Okay.
just a presented action potentially, maybe made. I didn't put this item together. However, from what I'm seeing is you're confirming it's a presentation discussion.
So I can't make a motion.
No.
I'd like to share some thoughts, please. So Chief Snow was gracious enough to meet with me at the police station. And then I was fortunate enough to actually go and observe what our dispatch people do. And I haven't heard anybody here say that as of yet. So I would encourage those of you who are making this decision to go spend the time like I did to understand the job. And I wasn't there long enough to fully understand the job. I will freely admit that. My problem with pardon me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not mean to interrupt you, Trustee Hudson. I just had, if when you're done, if I could just mention one other thing, please.
That'll be fine. My problem with this plan is I can't tell whether this is a good plan or a bad plan because to me, it's not a plan. I haven't seen anything on paper. I ran a call center for years. Call centers are run by metrics. We have no metrics to make this decision. We simply don't know. What is the volume of our calls from Germantown that would be moving to the county operation? And what are they currently handling? I'd like the answers to those questions. Another set of questions I have revolves around the 8 people that are currently doing this job and have dedicated part of their lives to serving our community, for which I am grateful. Is the intent to put all 8 of these people out on the job, or are we going to keep 4 of them and let 4 of them go? If the county is willing to offer them jobs, I want whatever the county is going to do for our employees, I want that to be written in paper. I don't want that to be discussions. Our employees deserve better than what is not a plan to me. It's my understanding that we've had people start as dispatchers and then go on to careers as police officers in our community. Is that a true statement?
In our community, we've had dispatchers from other agencies. Yes. We have at least one dispatcher that's potentially interested in the law enforcement field.
So we could also view it as an entry-level job into a police officer in our community. Just a different way of looking at it.
Yep, I think that that's certainly has the potential for something like that.
And then another set of questions that I have is, we say it's a savings of $300,000, but what about the responsibilities that our dispatchers are currently doing for our police officers when they are out on the streets? Who is going to do that work? Won't the police officers now have to do more clerical work because we've eliminated some dispatchers? I see that as being slightly counter. I don't know about the word slightly. I see that as being a little counterproductive to what we're trying to do. Again, I don't know whether this is a good idea or a bad idea, but what I do know is what we are doing today works for our community. If we have something that works, I don't think that we should risk it for something that we just don't know yet. This discussion might be a year too early. It might be 2 years too early. But I don't think that this discussion should start in October 4th of a budget cycle. These are only my personal opinions. Trustee Krecklo, you wanted to say something? Administrator, excuse. I
I'm sorry.
apologize. I apologize for the great demotion.
No, and I'm really sorry for interrupting before. I apologize about that. It's one of the challenges of participating online. I just, the one thing that I think that hasn't been discussed yet, that is another important consideration for the board. And it's something that, it's a question that I have that I need to get an answer to and provide it to the board. But right now, a transfer consolidation of this type, it needs two willing partners. And the county, we have to be willing to make the transfer, want to make the transfer. The county has to be willing and want to take the function on. And in most, if not all of the cases that I've seen in the past, it has never been something that's been presented as basically being free to the municipality when this has been consolidated. And I want to be careful how I state this, because I don't want to put words in the mouth of the county executive or anyone else at the county board, but I don't know that this is an offer or an opportunity that's available to the village at any time in the future. And that's an open question that I think also needs to be answered and presented to the board as well.
Administrator Krecklo, I appreciate those thoughts. I don't know if we should equate money and lives at this time. Trustee Pieper, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just to Administrator Krecklo. When can you get us these answers?
Well, I think there are things, we have this item will be brought back to the committee of the whole meeting in October. October 25th is if my date is correct, is the last committee of the whole meeting when this item would be discussed again. And I think we can have answers to these questions at that point.
So we'll have answers before October 25th?
Yes.
Okay. And do you understand all the questions that we're asking the county?
I believe that I do, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Administrator Krecklo and Trustee Pieper. Trustee Baum, please.
During this conversation, I've heard discussions that this is the way we're going in the future. Is there a bigger plan out there that I don't know about? The county is taking this all over. This is what some state ordinance, some state regulation is only dispatches at the county level. Is there something that I don't know about that I hear this is where it's going in the future? Does anybody know about that?
I certainly don't have sufficient information to answer that question. Chiefs?
I think just by virtue of the way they're putting the grants out there, they are geared toward consolidated dispatch. When you look at the cost of next gen 911, that cost will be considerable. County's not paying for much of theirs. They have a grant for it. When it comes to grants to improve facilities, the county has availability to a grant for that they're applying for right now that we're not allowed to apply for.
We're not allowed to apply because we are a village. We're not a
Vincent,
county.
I don't know that we're not allowed to apply for it. It's just the qualifications are such that we don't meet the qualifications.
What are the qualifications that we're?
Well, like for the next gen 911, it was that you have a minimum of 2 dispatchers working per shift. I think
We do.
we don't. We have a minimum of 2 on second shifts, a minimum of 1 on third and 1 on days. There's often 2 working on those other shifts, but we don't require 2 on each shift. We don't have the staffing for it. West Bend didn't meet that qualification. County was the only one that did.
So that's something we can.
Yeah,
should
that's,
talk about is
we can
what-
solve
what's
that
our
problem. Yeah.
Staffing model for that. Okay. What else? What other requirements do they have? Total number of population?
No, I think the next gen 911 was geared toward it was going to 1 PSAP per county, and the county got to decide which PSAP that was.
What's
If
a
they,
PSAP?
police, help me, public safety answering points.
Oh. Okay. Public safety answering points. Okay. Any other criteria that?
I knew that it was slipping my mind. What's that?
Any other criteria that is out there?
Not that come to mind, but we didn't meet anything that would have allowed us to apply for those.
And it sounds like the grant was already given away and it was given away to the county.
It was. They only gave away 1 per county.
So we can't even apply for it anymore. So the points moot.
No, I don't know if that's an ongoing grant or if that was a one-time. I'm not positive on that. I'd have to look at it again.
Thank you, chiefs and trustees. Please.
The question was the fire chief involved in any of the discussions? Meetings that they had with the fire chiefs at the county?
I was involved with at the county board meeting when the fire departments were or asking for assistance.
Were you part of any of the meetings or the discussions of looking at what it would start to take to make emergency services a county responsibility?
So in response to that, there was actually 2 meetings. One meeting was a listening session that the county executive had. That was the needs for the county departments. And the second one was just a presentation from the County Chiefs Association to the board, also expressing those needs. There hasn't been any other meetings.
Okay, but there has been some presentations in regards to what it would take and what type of services it would take for the county to start taking over emergency services in the future.
The last meeting that I was at, and the only other one that I'm aware of, or the only one that I'm aware of, was that the county executive was going to propose to the board funding to do a study on those things.
Correct. That's correct.
Yes, there hasn't been any other meetings besides that, that I'm aware of.
That's the meeting I'm talking about. So if you're asking for a direction and what's its purpose, that's the direction. And there are counties within Wisconsin that have taken on the emergency services. I think Dodge County is one that might be countywide paramedics or EMS. But there are at least 3 or 4 counties within Wisconsin that have now taken on emergency fire and emergency paramedic or EMS services at a county level. And that's the direction that they think it's going. And Josh is looking to put together a study to see what that means and what that looks like. And he's asked the county to give him money for that study so that they can bring that information forward for future.
So there is a movement to move all public safety, police, fire, EMS to a county level and get it out of the village.
there's 4 counties out of 72 where that appears to have happened. I would be hesitant to call that a movement at this point in time. I understand that. That's what the question was.
Milwaukee County has been like that since 1973, even though it has all the ambulances for all the different fire departments have their department's name on the side. The funding for those ambulances are actually from the county.
Trustee Peeper?
So for clarification purposes, would the fire department and police department actually stay in the village, or would they be moved somewhere towards the county?
I don't think that discussion included police.
Okay, so just,
And the
so
study that
President Walter, were the firefighters in the counties that this happened to, were their stations moved, or were they still, were they?
Part of the study is to.
Okay, because if it was to be moved, that would terrify me to wait a half hour for paramedic to come from West Bend to. President Walter, you have to come to the podium if you would like to speak. I'm
That's
sorry.
so this
Don't make me
the
grab your
the-
gavel.
the movement of our public safety services to the county is not something that we need to address
No.
today. Let's have this fight after I'm off the village board. Thank you. Please.
Tim Zimmerman, wastewater superintendent, been an employee of this village for 29 years. I know most of you. I sat in the back and I listened to this dialogue. There's one phone number tied to the police department that I would like an answer to. Where is it going to go in the future? And that's 253-7780, which is police non-emergency. Every piece of paper coming out of Public Works has this number written on it for after hours. It is the lifeblood of not only the wastewater utility, but the water utility and the highway department for reporting after hours emergencies so that our personnel can respond. These dispatchers dispatch out, I can't tell you how many after hours Diggers Hotline emergencies. We had one just last Friday night where a motorist struck a pole. I believe it was in the north end of the village, took out power to several hundred residents of this village. That pole could not go back in the ground until somebody from our utilities came out and told We Energies it's clear to put that pole back in the ground. Who's going to do that when this goes to the county? Because my understanding is county is going to dispatch EMS and police, not Public Works.
So thank you. These are the types of questions that we should have answers to in a lengthy deliberative process. And this is part of my concern in the month of October. Thank you.
Administrator Kreklo, could you find out the answer to
Trustee
that as
Pieper?
well? Sorry.
Would you like to say something?
Go ahead, please.
Please.
Administrator Kreklo, can you find out the answer to that as well, please?
Actually, I think that's going to be a good assignment for our sewer utility superintendent to talk to some of his colleagues and communities who don't have their own dispatch to find out how that works.
Mr. Zimmerman, are you fine with that?
Okay, all joking aside, this is not a discussion we should have the month that we have to make this decision.
Yeah.
This is a discussion we should have 18 months or a year before we have to make this decision. And again, I understand the arguments pro and for. I just don't see the information to make an intelligent decision. That's my personal opinion. Trustee Baum, would you like to say something?
I agree 100%. There's a lot of stuff that we've uncovered here tonight, open-ended questions that still have to be answered. So I agree with you.
All right, thank you. Anybody, anything else on new business 7A dispatch consolidation? The only other thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank everybody for their input onto this difficult topic. It has been great. Moving on to item B, Axion contract for body worn cameras and electronic control devices, please. Chief Snow?
Yeah, did Matthew sneak out on me? Okay, I have
He's
given you,
intelligent.
I have given you two proposals. And the long story short, we are looking for approval on the cheaper of the two proposals. That would have been the one for a total cost of $330,000, $485.15. And what that is to replace our body worn cameras and our tasers.
Chief Snow, would you like to say anything else, or would you
What-
want to be thrown to the wolves in the questions?
Yeah, so what it is replacing the body worn cameras and the tasers. The tasers are end of life, as are the body worn cameras. Last year, we came for approval to replace the fleet cameras, which was approved. This now, the body worn were on that same 5-year contract. We just had a deal that we had to kind of jump on for the fleet cameras, and that's why we asked for that early approval. Matthew provided a memo, and I left a copy for everyone. And basically, I'm going to read from his memo. Based on guidance of the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, capital leases can be treated the same as general obligation debt and funded through the debt service levy. That would free up some money in our budget. If that's not the case, you can see it's going to increase the general fund between $18,000 to $40,000. So I guess that was his recommendation, increase the debt service levy to fund this.
Thank you, Chief Snow. I think Trustee Pieper may have some questions.
Just two. What are the different, I've been looking through these. What is the difference? So the amount is the difference, but like they both come from the same company.
So the one is for 35 tasers. The other one is for 18.
So that's the difference in the amounts.
Yeah, because the one with 18 also includes a virtual training software along with the package.
Okay. And is there any room for negotiation with these? I know I deal with a lot of high price bids at work, and sometimes you can negotiate with them to get a cheaper price.
We've done that quite a bit, unless someone's better at it than me. We've
I'll call
been going through this for a while. You're more than welcome.
Yeah, those are my only two questions.
Thank you. Trustee Neureiter.
Chief Snow, this is for 5 years, right? And you're looking at the contract for 330,000.
That's correct.
So we're talking about 66,000 a year, which falls in that range of 58 to 80,000 annually. For the 2024 budget, we have 40,000 in that budget? Is that what I'm reading here?
40,000 for yes, that would have covered the contracts that we had with them in the past.
So we're still about 26,000 short. Correct? So we'd have to up, if we go the budget route, we'd have to up it by about another 26,000.
Yeah, I think Matt had estimated anywhere between $18,000 to $40,000.
I mean, I hate to see this go on debt service. I'll be real honest with you. I've heard from a lot of people, we have enough debt. So, personally, I think it should go into the budget. If somebody can get them to bring the numbers down, why not give it a try? How soon? You don't need this tonight anyways, right? Since this would be subject to the budget, the 2024 budget.
Correct.
So we ought to really wait. We ought to put it in the budget at full amount and then see if it survives by November 19th or whatever before we go ahead with the purchaser.
Is it in the 2024 budget? Did we get the
Did-
amendment in the budget?
Matthew's gone.
Oh, Matthew's gone.
Yeah,
No,
If
there,
I could interject, I do believe that this is in the 2024 budget, but not at this amount.
It's in at
It's-
40,000.
40,
yeah.
Okay.
So this is.
So we
gonna
need
be an
another
additional-
26.
Yes,
Oh, okay. All right.
if I recollect correctly.
Thank you, trustee Nyrider. Thank you, trustee Pieper. Trustee Baum, please.
No. He asked my question,
Really?
so I'm not gonna answer it.
We'll give you a second chance later on. Trustee Pieper, please.
I agree with trustee Nyrider, and I think this should go to committee of the whole, and I do not want
Yeah.
this to go on the debt. And I think we can we can find money elsewhere.
It's $26,000.
Yeah, we can find that. We'll cut down the trees again.
Well, we'll talk about that later. Thank you, trustee Pieper. Anything else on Axion contract for body worn cameras and electronic control devices? Excellent. New business. Item C, discontinuation of the tornado warning system.
Look to your left.
Administrator Krecklow, I think this is your item. Excellent.
I don't believe he is on our own WebEx.
Oh,
I
dang.
don't believe I see him logged.
Should
in
we
with the
postpone?
city.
Trustee Pieper, please.
Okay, we all know that this came from me, and we all know
yeah,
how I
that's
feel
right.
about this.
I forgot.
I
Thank you
know,
for
it's a
reminding
mi-
me.
It's a minuscule savings of $9,000. $9,000 is $9,000 for a system that is not utilized for what it was even meant for. And with today's technology, this is completely useless.
Thank you, trustee Pieper. Trustee Baum, please.
Chief Snow, Chief Delane, what are requirements that we have to have this system? Are there any?
so one of our firefighters was at some training and did get some input from Rob Schmidt, the county emergency medical director. If I could just read his comments on that. Basically, or they were paraphrased, I believe. Washington County is the only county in southeastern Wisconsin that does not subscribe to Integrated Public Alert and Warning System, which is IPAWS. County dispatch does not have the ability to do it, and it is about $30,000 per year to implement and maintain it. IPAWS is free through the state, but the county would need a middleman to host the IPAWS software, and that's where the cost is from. There is some push for the county to fund it, but as of now, they have not been receptive to it. He does caution against not having either the siren or the IPAWS. He makes a good point when you look at the incident in Hawaii where they didn't give public alert. And now there is some liability attached to that. That was the input that we had regarding that. There's no requirement that we have it, but right now we have something where without that IPAWS, there's nothing out there yet. Certainly if the county would move towards something like that, would be beneficial and probably be to the point where we would not need the sirens then.
So thank you, Chief Snow. So I have a few questions. So the sirens are on top of large poles, and my understanding is that there are 2 car batteries in each of those poles to power the sirens. Is that not correct?
I thought it was more than 2 car batteries. I'd have to look to verify that.
There's some car batteries on the top of
There is
all poles.
indeed, yes.
Yeah, and so if we were going to discontinue the system, wouldn't we need then to take the system down? And wouldn't we very quickly spend more than $9,000 disconnecting the system? And thereby, and I think the system is antiquated too. I don't get me wrong, but to defund it and to leave the things sitting up there, I I'm not so sure that that's the right way to go either. Trustee Peeper,
What does iPause actually do?
That gentleman looks like he could help
Michael.
you better than I could.
So iPause is essentially the system that you would get the text like we all received today at 1:20. That was from like a federal type system. This would be more of a locally based system at the county level usually.
and what kind of alerts, what kind of alerts would we get?
You could do whatever you want. A lot of times schools use them too for just even letting people know that school is out. That's how they get the message out to a lot of people. At one point, you could do weather alerts, stay away from this area if the police department has a tactical incident, yeah, things like that.
And do we know what the cost is?
I did not do any research on it, but the information that I was given was it is about $30,000 a year to install and maintain.
Okay, and that must just be software.
County.
Yes, that is my understanding, yes.
And does it have to be county-wide?
So most places, from my understanding, it is through the county emergency manager. I think that would be something that you could make the decision to do otherwise, though. Right now, for us to get that out, we would have to activate our county emergency manager, Rob Schmid, who would then have to activate at the state level an emergency operations center, an EOC. And then that EOC director is able to put out an iPause through the state system at a local base. But that process is about an hour plus. And at that point,
The tornado's done its damage.
So how do we get the tornado alerts and the severe weather alerts on our phone that go off just like the alert that we all got today? Where do those come from?
That I'm not sure.
Those, I believe, come from the state or the National Weather Service in the state.
So we already have it.
The state has iPause and makes iPause but again, you'd have to go through those steps to activate the county emergency manager who activates the emergency operations center at the state level, who is then able to put that message out.
But we still get the alerts from state.
It takes an hour.
Correct.
But
For maybe for a weather event, yes.
But it's not after the tornado passes, because I've gotten these alerts on my phone, as I'm sure you have, and it was well before the storm came.
Storm.
I haven't actually, which is an interesting discussion.
Oh, we
but-
haven't
but
had a
we
tornado.
won't have that discussion tonight. Trustee Baum, please.
Storm is activated by the National Weather Service. A
Correct.
fire department emergency or some other warning is not issued by NOAA.
Okay, I
If you wanted to
yes. And
warn of a fire that's sweeping through,
And I think we need to put pressure on the county to enact this and pay for this, since it would be countywide and we do not need this at a village level. And I think we should leave these stupid alarms on top of these stupid poles until they die, and then we'll figure out how to remove them then.
Well, thank you, Battalion Chief Holmes. Thank you, Battalion Chief Peeper. Any other discussion? Chief Snow?
Just quickly, one thing to consider, back in, I think, 2020, we brought this up because it was at that point, before that though, the ones that originally serviced those towers told us there was significant upgrades needed. I believe that was to the tune of $200,000 for all the sirens. We opted to go with a different company that said, no, you can just replace the batteries for now. But I'm sure sooner or later that's going to be a discussion too, is upgrading that software.
Again, that'll be after I'm off the board.
you looking to be fired tonight?
Anything else on the discontinuation of the tornado warning system, please?
Am I allowed to make a motion?
It's not an
This
action.
isn't, are any of them on for action?
No, not today.
Okay. I'll take it up at committee of the whole, don't worry.
Thank you. Seeing that we have concluded the agenda, first Wednesday in November would be Wednesday, November 1st, 6:30 PM. Does that work for everybody? November 1st. first Wednesday in November? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Please.
I would just like clarification, we have historically, the public safety is met first Monday of the month, so are you changing it to now reflect Wednesdays for public safety?
Yes, we are, please.
Okay,
First Wednesday.
because I believe it might be, you'd have to verify with the attorney, but I believe it's written in code that it states first Monday of the month, but we can continue to go Wednesdays, and if we want that changed, I'm not 100%, but I just want to ensure. We want to do Wednesdays, then I can.
We'd like that to be an agenda item for the first Wednesday in November. We want to take a
Yeah,
look at that.
we can put it for Wednesday, November 1st. That's not an
Thank
issue.
you.
It's just making
6:30.
sure historically that we can get
Eh,
it changed for you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate
Okay.
that. 6:30 PM. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. This meeting's adjourned.
Walters was our attorney.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. Just me. Good luck. She's the only friend I have. I think you were pregnant twice. I am two. Yes. Our time. Yeah. I think you're right. Planet, so I'm like. I was like, yep, like, oh.
Yes, sir, no.
Yeah. I am so. So for knowing, so like, why that's better is, why that's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I watch? So it's now I know that I wanted to Wednesday, but. Then-
All right, see you, have a good night.
Call the police, they need to let